Is play-by-play really as easy as shouting at a screen? Let's find out. I'm your caster Seda, and this is the Caster's Cachet. To be blunt, no. Play-by-play shoutcasting is a very complex and difficult field, and only the most experienced shoutcasters ever really learn the true art of how to shout at a screen properly. After days of research and months of self-practice, I've distilled it into these 3 separate categories. These are saying what's going on, setting up for the color, and creating a narrative. Let's take a closer look. Saying what's going on is easily the most recognizable part of being a play-by-play shoutcaster. All you have to do is say what's going on.
The lead goes in, Cachet goes down. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the last. They will be the Season 3 World Champions.
Though just like the rest of shoutcasting, saying what's going on isn't really that easy. Here's a thought. Don't you hate that one friend who always has a comment about the weather? Now, imagine a TV show of him always talking about the weather, but not on the Weather Channel. Sounds painful, right? This is when the experience that I talked about in last episode comes in handy, knowing when to state the obvious. And that's easy, only after major changes, things like big team fights or item pickups. Experience and practice with your color caster will give you a sense of when your input is vital, and more importantly, when it isn't. If the play-by-play tells the viewer the what, the color caster tells the viewer the why. The color caster is a credible source of information that you, the play-by-play, rely on to fill time in between those major game changes that I talked about earlier. When you aren't keeping the viewer updated to major game changes, you should be asking the color caster leading questions. Things like, why did Draven build an Infinity Edge instead of a Bloodthirster? Or why is Jungle Teemo starting at red buff instead of blue? Questions like these keep your color caster talking and keeps a varied pace in between the casters. One states the obvious, while other talks about things that your average viewer might miss. It can be incredibly tempting to answer your questions preemptively with statements. Things like, Draven wants a Bloodthirster right now. This is another big difference between a good caster and a great caster. And again boils down to the idea that a broadcast is a conversation between the two of you. Simply stating the obvious is not conducive to follow-up from your color caster, not to mention the fact that you place your credibility on the line when you do so. Let your color caster make assertions like that. It's his job. The last part of being a good play-by-play caster is constructing a good narrative, and ultimately, this will define how entertaining a play-by-play caster you are. To be blunt, creating a narrative is as simple as choosing what to talk about at the right time. Will you emphasize the 403 LeBlanc who rushed Deathfire's grasp, or will you spend 5 minutes talking about the pros and cons of Randuin's Omen versus Sunfire Cape on support Leona? Both can be exciting, but learning how to emphasize what is having the most impact at that moment will greatly add to your entertainment value. Building a narrative doesn't only happen in-game either. It can start well before the ban phase with the history of the players in the teams and ends well after the match has concluded. One of the reasons that League of Legends is so successful as an esport is because of these narratives. Seeing these players' histories and backgrounds create wildly unique and inimitable interactions every weekend ensures that the LCS never grows dull. As a play-by-play caster, you have a hand in creating that story. So, which play-by-play caster do you think tells the best stories? Let me know in the comments, and clicking subscribe is almost as awesome as becoming the newest member of Pentakill. Well, Hexakill. Thanks for watching. Distinct basic weeks. House the shot home. When you aren't reactions, one of the practice with your color will give you a Draven wants an infinity. Lead with the. So, which play-by-play caster? I will survive.